All right. Hey, it's Tim Reha here live on Thursday at the HPA Tech Retreat, and it is really nice to track down Kari Grubin, who's everywhere here at the event. You're a consultant with HPA board member. You do so much. What is your background?
Oh, wow. I've been in media and entertainment the majority of my career, so I've done everything from assistant editing to working for two of the studios in town, Disney and Paramount. I have worked in cybersecurity. I had my own post-production facility. I sold that to Deluxe, and right now I'm consulting for SMPTE on the Rapid Industry Solutions Onset Virtual Production Initiative. Say that 5 times fast. SMPTE RISOSVP for short.
And what's cool is I've been wanting to get my hands on the map, and we're looking at it, and now I have you here on stage. So tell us about the event and what you've set up here, and then we can go into RIS in the rest of the program.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, for HPA, for the Super Session, we really wanted to tackle something that was timely and an area that probably most of the people who come, there's a lot of confusion around. So we've had that tradition in the past with remote production and post-production. And so we thought, virtual production is really the hot topic. And for every person you talk to, they have a different definition. So getting people on the same level is really, really, it's a critical factor to help move it forward.
Yeah, and it's like there's some vocabulary that's going out there, like the metaverse. Okay, it's like air, air is actually more specific than what the metaverse is.
Yeah.
Like we know what air is.
Oh yeah. And virtual production is really kind of one of those entrees into the metaverse, because so many assets are being created virtually, and we're going to be at a point where you don't recreate a faucet 20 times. You go to a virtual library in the metaverse, collect those assets, bring them into your virtual environments to use. And it touches all different business verticals. And right now, because of the pandemic and everything else, the work that media and entertainment content creators are doing really is leveraging those tools much faster, I think, than anyone had anticipated. And so this mass acceleration has created a lot of confusion.
Yeah, and it's all these different pipelines, and then not everything's shared. Like there's a lot of trade secrets too.
Oh yeah, well, secret sauce is the bread and butter of our business, but we have had a history in this industry of creating these common use tools so that we can have a common way to increase interoperability. So we had that with things like IMF. And DCI is basically that. And so we need to work on those tools for the virtual production, ecosystem.
And especially as an entry point for education, for people to understand this space. I think it's really exciting as an educational tool to teach the next generations coming up. It's like you can learn to use the video game engines and all this technology instead of just playing.
Oh, yeah.
And in such a creative space, it's actually eye candy, and the kids love it.
Oh, well, yeah, no, it totally is. And it allows you to tell stories in ways you never could before.
Yeah.
It allows you to actually, the beauty of virtual production is in some of these environments, you can have magic hour like for every day for 10 days in a row. You're not subject to what, the natural environment outside would do. So there's a lot of use cases, and it doesn't all have to be big and giant. It can be small.
We have Don P coming up next, a buddy of mine, and these people are building like the YouTuber level studios, but you can do amazing productions. And then we have Jimmy Stedman here, so we can have a remote studio beam people in and have like a whole new fabric for creativity.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so many lessons that have been learned over decades by the broadcast area that now are translating into, more kind of scripted television or, streaming or, big major features. So a lot of these tools, when I did the opening for our Super Session, I said, Betty Davis was, one of the pioneers of virtual production because she used background plates, green screens, just even like moving backgrounds, rear projection. We've been doing this forever.
It's not brand new.
No, it's not brand new. But it's leveraging tools that are now crossing over from other areas, the game engines, actually being able to go into worlds, manipulate them, understand camera angles, understand storytelling options, being able to look at a way to get visuals that aren't about space, meaning like outer space, that aren't about imaginary worlds, but about flowing through one room to the next. Like walls can disappear, or you can do close-ups. And guess what? With those close-ups, you don't need to be in a 50 by 50 foot LED volume on some massive stage. You can use a really high-end display that is just basically behind the window of a car plate, so just a car door, and have it in the same kind of effect.
It democratizes the business and pushes creativity global. And so what next I'm looking at here on screen, I really love the video that you guys produce is the RIS.
Yeah, so about a year ago, the SMPTE team came to me to look at kind of updating and understanding what the constituents of SMPTE needed. And on-set virtual production was a really big part of those questions. And so we created this overview wall chart to get everybody just kind of on the same level, the same foundation.
Yeah.
And then wanted to then leverage. And we've been looking at it for weeks, and someone pointed out very acutely, like, well, we know what we're looking at, but does anybody else?
Yeah, the wall charts. We had the wall chart up.
Yeah, so we actually ended up then creating a companion video so people would know, what are they looking at?
Yep.
And why? Why did we make this? And so that piece from the creators, and it has, speakers from across the education community, movie labs, our just a bunch of different, people who are key and essential in creating this information from an educational as well as just basic workflow. This isn't the only workflow for virtual production, but you need a starting point.
No, it was a really good resource. I just joined Wacom, and I'm not like super deep in the virtual production space, so this was so helpful just to really have a mental map and then to be able to drill into the different components that you've laid out here. There's it's really helpful.
Yeah. And I mean, another key here was also putting it in language that was universally understood. So we had a partnership with Movie Labs.
Yeah, cool.
And Movie Labs is a very big, participant in Rapid Industry Solutions. And we said, we need to put a legend on here. We don't want people to assume what they're seeing, but also, too, we specifically used the Movie Labs common, their visual language for, creative production. And we did that on purpose because we need to start using these common tools so that more and more people use the same tools. And that's a way, again, to have that communication across an entire group. Yeah. It doesn't mean that people and companies can't do proprietary on their own. It's all about how do we come together so that we are truly making sure we understand each other as we're navigating these really challenging and interesting and complex technical systems.
And you have diverse technology stacks like Unreal Engine as in the gaming universe is completely different than this universe. Yeah. And so how do you have a common language?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
I had a great story from Brian Gaffney from Unity. When he went to Unity, he was talking about rendering. And someone said, he asked the question like, well, so what do you do to render the image? And they're like, well, what are you talking about? And it turned out what they think of as rendering is real time. They just call it compute. So it's just simple, like really, really tiny subtleties that because gaming folks who have a lot of expertise in this area, or say art departments that are using tools like Wacom tools and others, and that it's just helping so that you can find that common ground. I know it's just the same theme because it is the same theme over and over. How
an apple is an apple and a red apple is a red apple.
Right.
Cool. So what's next here? We've got...
So then the next thing we did for this very ambitious super session on virtual production is we thought, let's take this idea to the HPA attendees and help them also get to that, at least a similar level. Some people came in with high levels of knowledge about this. Some people had no idea. So we thought, okay, we're going to create 3 volume environments, which I am so thrilled we were able to
I think
do.
it was the first time I don't even think it's happened before, is to have 3 actual volumes. And volumes are these LED volumes, walls, and all the technology stack that makes them all work, from MOSIS, camera tracking to...
Well, exactly. In each of these environments, so think of your volume as your rear projection or your immersive world. And then you have to have drivers, you have to have your game engines, you need to have lighting control, camera tracking. And so all of these tools, cameras, those all fit together and they have to work synchronously in order to create something that then creates the desired output. And oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just looking at it's an interesting complex ecosystem, and then there's a bunch of things that are just hidden, like just the fiber optics you have to use in building things for reliability.
Yeah. So we got different diagrams, workflow diagrams from all of the partnerships of the different companies in each of these instances. And what we realized is they were all very different because depending on who made them, they used different icons. They may have put different types of the technology stack in a different place. And we thought, you know what, to make it readable and make it understandable, we needed to make them similar style. And again, we leveraged the Movie Lab's common visual language, which is my shortened version of the long name. But this way, when you look at each of the diagrams, you know what you're looking at. The color coding, and a call out to Chris Vienu from Movie Labs for helping us over the weekend while he was like hanging out with his kids to get this done. But we put everything in so that each diagram you look at, you have a sense. Okay, I understand this is the replacement. If I'm in volume 1, which is with Aoto and Moses and Airy, this is what it looks like. But if I go to the Sony volume, it was different. And Sony had a lot of proprietary components. And then you go into the volume with planar and disguise, and they had a very complex system with several screens. So, but again, the components were the same, so you can follow it. So if you wanted to look at, say, like the example of the planar volume, the planar disguise volume, you'll see that there's something that looks very similar to this, but then we have a copy online of what they basically originally submitted. Looks very different. Same information, but it's all about presentation for people to find it accessible to be able to understand.
Huge. And everybody, there is a QR code on here which you can scan, and so you can get the maps. And then what is the website where all this lives?
Well, right now these are living on the HPA website, but our goal is to take these diagrams and add them to the library that the RAS initiative is putting together.
Very cool.
Yeah. So again, the more that we can provide these for free and make them available for people to use as learnings, as examples.
Should I flip to the next slide?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So we have a couple more here.
Yeah, so this
so
shows
here's
you
the Sony one,
volume.
yeah.
So you can see, again, you understand, there's the wall. So this was a different technology. It's their CLED technology, amazing, originally thought of as being used for theatrical presentation, but they've iterated it, made changes over the last couple of years. And for the people who saw it, they had a setup that looked like you were sitting on a patio in front of like a harbor, Marina del Rey or somewhere, and it was gorgeous.
I was going to say it's gorgeous. I want to give a shout out to our friends at Sony because I saw some of this iteration 2 years ago at CES, or the last CES before the fun happened.
Yeah.
And they had the Ghostbusters original Ghostbusters car in there. It was cool.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, again, different technologies for different use cases. You might want to change what your pixel pitch is. So here again, again, another level of complexity. This is what the planar volume looked like with OptiTrack and Disguise and Brompton processing and red. And
Quasar, which is doing our lights today. Those guys are great.
Yeah, I mean, and like understanding kind of the components of lighting and how the signal is carried and what you're missing or fighting against. Again, really, really interesting from Tim Kane and others that talking about what that meant. Yeah. But if you go to the next slide, you'll see like the original. Oops. I guess we didn't have it, but there's a different, when you go onto the website, there's actually another image which looks all the same components but placed differently. Yeah. No color coding. And if you are a real expert in the space, there you go. That, that's understandable to some people but not accessible to all. We have to have a place to start together.
And it's very engineering orientated, and it's like, it just looks like I'm wiring up yeah, cool.
Yeah. So now
Very interesting.
having these resources and to look at it, it starts to allow people to say, if you're having a conversation and trying to decide what, technology to use, at least you have, some sense of, okay, these are the pieces, these are the components.
Yeah.
This is how I get that done so that you can start to put together what the system needs are for what each individual production is doing. And it's the conversation starting point.
Very cool. And it's a reference point to dive in.
Exactly.
And so let's see what else we have here. We have photos.
Yeah, so we started on Saturday. So this is the Sony CLED team starting to build their CLED. The process, different walls go up faster. Next to it, I think we've got some pictures. That's the team putting up the AOTO. It was a curved wall.
Yeah, cool.
Again, another different type of technology.
They're cool because they're modular and they use these magnetic devices to plug in the little components, and they're replaceable. In case one goes bad, you can just hot swap them.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing is you have to be able to take the pieces out. So that shows you just an example of how these, different. It's like building with Lincoln Logs or Legos, right?
Yeah.
And then we had trussing, and so there was lighting and camera tracking that went up into the ceiling, and we did this all in a ballroom in Palm Desert.
Yeah, I was like so
amazing.
rad. I was like going like, you got to get down to the event. I'm curious what's going to happen next year. And it's ambitious. It's really ambitious to do this with all these Lego parts. So congratulations to the whole HPA team and everybody that's supporting it, from vendors out of the staff here at the hotel.
Yeah, no, I mean, we couldn't have done this without, they always say it takes a village, and it was really this combined effort, and I think the attendees and the vendor, all of the partners really, they got to meet a whole new group of people on both sides to start to have again these conversations.
Cool.
Yeah.
This was really cool. It's funny because we were having dinner, and then all of a sudden I see him in the scene, and they do some very cool thing with quasar lighting here to sync the lighting with DMX, overhead lighting, in as well as with Unreal Engine, so you can carry the virtual lighting into the real space, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely. And
so what's going on here?
Well, they were changing time of day. So basically you're seeing an output from the viewfinder of the Red camera. And they've got a virtual background, I think, set up here for daytime. And when we got here, they were looking for props. So they actually, those are actual just props they found around
and that's like,
venue.
And what's cool is you see an OptiTrack system. We had an OptiTrack on the show earlier. And it actually looks... The looks are really cool when you look at through the camera.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Yeah, each of these teams really put together some amazing content. We also had content that was from the Entertainment Technology Center at USC.
ETC.
The ETC at USC. They are in the process of doing a new short called Fathead. Remarkable content. Gorgeous. And so, we had that content up to be able to show participants. We had each of the vendor and partner teams had some of their own content. So everyone really got to, look at different types of images.
Yeah.
And again, you can't judge necessarily just by looking at the volumes. I mean, the volumes are impressive when you just see them, but people are like, well, maybe does that look real? What is that? You have to look through the viewfinder. You have to see what the camera is capturing.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting because
then you understand.
Because there's all this color correction and all these things going on. It might not look right from your human eyeball until you look through the glass.
Yeah, and then in some of this, and I think this shows it really well,
Yeah.
is that you have the fulstrum or firstrum, which is what the camera sees, and so you might have just a very kind of like. It's strange if you've never seen it before, because you see an image that's moving on top of an image.
Yeah.
And really that's about what the viewfinder and what you're supposed to see as the final product versus kind of the whole big space.
Yeah, it's really cool. The frustrum's really cool because you see the whole background, and then you see this square, which is your view plane to capture the parallax, so you have a stereo image as it's screaming across the screen.
Stated
I got this.
Very, very eloquently. Very nice.
I got this.
Very nice.
And we had such a great team. We got to work with Wacom and sponsored gear globally. So we have like Pavan working on amazing work with digital humans. We had Vlad scanning in objects for the film, cleaning them up. We had Paris Digital, and we put a lot of this stuff together like on the fly, which is what I like doing at times.
Yeah.
Paris Digital friends in Spain have this massive, one of the world's largest prop houses. So if you need a period piece from 1600, there's 1,000 different shoes of these areas. So then we're able to take the characters and adorn them with cool clothing.
Yeah, and that's kind of where that whole idea of where the metaverse is going. I mean, people think metaverse, they think Facebook, but that's not really what it is. It's really
You got to read Neil's book first, and then Snow Crash, and then then we go from there.
Yeah, but it's really more this idea of taking assets, either creating them in a virtual environment or scanning through LiDAR and other, depending on what the scope is, what you're doing, and then you have content that can be manipulated and leveraged for what it is that you're trying to do from a storytelling purpose. And that storytelling isn't just about a movie or about a documentary or about something on broadcast. Now, these assets transcend all different types of content.
It's like basically we're talking about transmedia with my buddy Mark Long, and with what I call pixel perfect assets. You can literally 3D print an asset. You can use it in the film. You can create a comic book out of the asset. So you have transmedia that then can live on outside just a square frame. They're virtual reality as well.
Yeah, and that's the world where we're going. And so that's the other learnings that the industry overall has to take, is that it's a return to discipline. That's what Eric and Weaver and I really kind of try to put across to everybody, is that with planning and discipline, just like when we used to blow up cars for special effects, you blew it up once. The same thing here. If you start to plan, then you actually build a pathway to actually reuse assets to be able to have longevity. And some of that's only been the purview of really large companies that have major brands, so they're worried about that. But as you're taking and looking at what you're making, those assets are things that can live on in perpetuity if thought about,
No, it's really cool. Like there was Mike with Effects Guide, Mike Seymour had did this post with McDonald's, and they created a scene of a store or their McDonald's. And you can reuse that asset. You can do multilingual things on top of it. You can do all types of things, but at least you have your look and a base and a foundation that can scale, and the seeds of creativity are there to sprout.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, back, 30 years ago, it was when they built the first of the Oval Office sets. And I think it might have been for West Wing or one of the TV shows. And then it got used over and over and over and over again. Well, think about that being like, you don't have to have that physical set. You can create something in a virtual environment and use that over and over and over and over again.
And what's crazy is these can be world scale.
Oh, yeah.
Things like our friends with CCM have the software that you ingest basically parts of the map, and you can dive in. So it's pretty profoundly game changing if you think about the scale of how this can scale out.
Yeah, and people think it's just about movies or it's just about kind of creative storytelling. There's a whole effort, as an example, that went on with Notre Dame in Paris too, which obviously had suffered the devastating fire, but about how they were going to scan and really recreate that environment in a virtual way as they're going through and obviously trying to save what they can save and repair it, but it's the same thing if you think about if we could have done that back in the Egyptian, empire. If you could have done that back in...
The amount of history that's now underground.
Well, exactly.
Gone,
Exactly. And so but again, those are the types of... We have to start... If we can start to think outside of our box we've created, there's all this, amazing realm of possibility with this technology. That transcends just what we call storytelling right now.
Yeah, and I worked in medical training simulators and things like that in virtual reality, and these same tool sets can be applied across industries. And so I could spend 2 years with you, Kari. Let's give some shout outs to your team.
Oh, my Lord. I mean, I have to thank all of the Super Session participants. I don't want to forget anybody, but if you look on the HPA website, I mean, it was it was just remarkable. Everybody coming together, the HPA staff. So Phil Kubel, who's the executive director.
Phil.
Alicia Rock, Joyce Cataldo, Max Ma, Hillary Sabay. I mean, it took a village. Eric Weaver from the ETC was, we were co-chairs on this. We had so many volunteers from the board and participants, and it was really a labor of love and a lot of hard work, and we were just so pleased that we were able to share this experience with everybody.
And it looked amazing, as well produced, and the people are just top notch. I ran into, we're talking about audio production. We met the cat who did Michael Jackson Thriller and stuff like that. And it was like just in the hallway. Hey,
that's pretty awesome.
And this guy named Sting. I've never heard of him. He's like cool. So what's next for you?
Well, we're going to continue the hard work that we have with Rapid Industry Solutions. So there are two key, identified initiatives on education and interoperability. So there's work being done on looking at existing standards or recommended practices that we can get out to the industry right away to have a starting base. But there's a major collection of metadata that's starting from the lens through the camera to everything else.
Yeah, we were just talking to Zeiss earlier.
Yeah. I mean, Zeiss is one of many participants. Yeah. And also looking at how are we going to make that transport medium so that we have that translator. So if you're working in a proprietary system, great. If you're working in an open source system, great. But we want to make the tool that is universally understood so that you can take and maintain the integrity of the metadata and the all of the data that is coming out, the image data, sound data, whatever we're collecting, tracking data, and make sure that translates through the entire pipeline. So wherever you need to be able to access it, whether during this production or in the future, you have pristine information to be able to leverage. And then education's the other side. It's things like the wall chart. It's having these participants at these types of conversations. It's working with educational institutions so that when a young person's studying gaming, they realize they could have a career in what we are doing in media and entertainment on the content creation side, whether broadcast or scripted.
Very cool. All right, so that's Kari Grubin, consultant, HPA board member. How do people get a hold of you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Kari Grubin, Karigrubin.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. It was a great show, and it's really nice to meet you in person. And congratulations for a fantastic experience.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And it's been nice to meet you finally, too. So,
cheers.
Thanks.